Welcome. This is lesson 3-3, deductive reasoning. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to apply deductive reasoning to draw logical conclusions from statements. So, we're learning about deductive reasoning, and unlike inductive reasoning, which uses a specific pattern of examples or observations to make general conclusion, deductive reasoning uses general facts, rules, definitions, or properties to reach specific valid conclusions from given statements. An argument is valid if it is possible for all the premises or supporting statements of the argument to be true and for its conclusion to be false. Let's look at an example. Determine whether each conclusion is based on inductive or deductive reasoning. If a student is late returning a library book, then he or she will be charged a $2 late fee. Chang returned a library book late, so he concludes that he will be charged a $2 late fee. Is this an example of inductive or deductive? Chang is basing his conclusion on the library's policy, so he is using deductive reasoning. Here's another example. Every time Tamika has worn her favorite jersey to a football game, her school's team has won the game. Tamika is wearing her favorite jersey to the football game tonight, so she concludes that her school's team will win the game. Don't we all wish? Tamika is basing her conclusion on a specific pattern of observations, so she is using inductive reasoning. So, inductive is based upon patterns, deductive is based upon general facts, rules, and so forth. Now, you try example one, check, and then we'll review the answer. Pause the video, try it on your own. Okay, Newton's first law of motion states that an object at rest will remain at rest unless acted on by an unbalanced force. Elisa watches a soccer ball roll across the field. She concludes that an unbalanced force has acted upon the soccer ball. Elisa is using deductive reasoning because she has based her conclusion on a law, Newton's first law of motion. That is deductive reasoning. Ms. Jackson notices that her family's data usage is increasing by approximately 2,500 megabytes of data every month. So she concludes that her family's data usage next month will be 2,500 megabytes greater than this month's data usage. Ms. Jackson is using inductive reasoning because she observed the information every monthly bill. So on every monthly bill, she observed it. That is inductive reasoning. Okay, so we're going to look at two different laws related to deductive reasoning. One is the law of detachment and one is the law of syllogism, but we're going to start here with the law of detachment. Remember, deductive reasoning uses general facts, rules, definitions, or properties to reach specific valid conclusions from given statements. An argument is valid if it is possible for all the premises or supporting statements of the argument to be true and for its conclusion to be false. One related to deductive reasoning is the law of detachment. It says if P then Q is a true statement and P is true, then Q is true. Let's look at the example. Given if a car is out of gas, then it will not start. Sarah's car is out of gas, so our valid conclusion is Sarah's car will not start. Let's look at another example. Determine whether each conclusion is valid based on the given information. Write valid or invalid. Explain your reasoning. You're given to go on a field trip. A student must turn in a permission slip. Mariana turned in her permission slip, so the conclusion would be Mariana can go on the field trip. First, identify the hypothesis and conclusion. Because the student must turn in a permission slip to go on the field trip, the phrase a student must turn in a field trip slip is the hypothesis of the conditional, and then the conclusion is the student can go on the field trip. Let's analyze our conclusion. The given statement, Mariana turned in her permission slip, satisfies the hypothesis, so P is true. By the law of detachment, Mariana can go on the field trip, which matches Q, is a true or valid conclusion. One more. If a figure is a square, then it is a polygon. Figure A is a polygon. The conclusion is figure A is a square. Identify the hypothesis and conclusion. The hypothesis is that the figure is a square. The conclusion is it is a polygon. So, analyzing the conclusion, the given statement figure A is a polygon satisfies the conclusion Q of a true conditional. However, knowing that a conditional statement and its conclusion are true does not make the hypothesis true because we're trying to base this off the conclusion. Figure A could be a triangle, so this conclusion is invalid. You try the example 2 check, pause the video, and try it on your own. Determine whether the conclusion is valid based on the given information. Select the correct answer and justification. You're given if 3 points are non-collinear, then they determine a plane. Points A, B, and C lie in plane G. And the conclusion is that points A, B, and C are non-collinear. And honestly, I want to go ahead and draw a plane. I just need a representation here, and that may really help me. So I'm going to draw a plane G, and I'm going to put points A, B, and C in there. So points A, B, I'm going to write B next to it, and C. So I've drawn 3 points in there. And I actually drew my points collinear on purpose to see if it would work because I'm just kind of looking for a counterexample. And so points A, B, and C are non-collinear would be invalid because I just drew 3 collinear points and they all lie inside plane G. So the correct answer is D. Points A, B, and C can be collinear and lie in plane G. All right, so I told you there was another law, and this other law is called the law of syllogism. One law that is related to deductive reasoning is the law of syllogism. This law allows you to draw conclusions from two true conditional statements when the conclusion of one statement is the hypothesis of the other. If P then Q and if Q then R are true statements, then if P then R is a true statement. Look at the example. If you get a job, then you will earn money. That's the first statement. The second statement, if you earn money, then you will buy a car. So, valid conclusion, if you get a job, then you will buy a car. Let's see if we can use this. Scientists have found that the quality and amount of sleep greatly impact learning and memory. Lack of sleep causes students to have trouble focusing and receiving new information. Sleep deprivation also makes it difficult to retrieve previously learned information. Draw a valid conclusion from the given statements if possible. If you are tired, then you will not do well on your tests. If you do not get enough sleep, then you will be tired. Identify the hypothesis and conclusion that are the same. Determine whether the conclusion of one statement is the hypothesis of the other. Right now, we have the hypothesis of one statement is the conclusion of the other, but we wanted to end with the conclusion and begin with the same hypothesis. One way to do that is to reorder the given statement so that the conclusion of the first statement is the hypothesis of the second. This will allow you to make a valid conclusion using the law of syllogism. Given if you do not get enough sleep, then you will be tired. If you are tired, then you will not do well on the test. That allows us to go from P, because our Q is the same, P to R. So the statement should be, and it's if P then Q, then if Q then R. And because both statements are true and the conclusion of the first statement is the hypothesis of the second, we can apply if P then R by the law of syllogism. A valid conclusion is if you do not get enough sleep, then you will not do well on your test. You try the example 3 check, and I see that the answer is already up there, so let's just go ahead and go through. The Grand Canyon covers an area of 1,900 square miles and contains 277 miles of the Colorado River. Since the Grand Canyon became a national park in 1919, over 193 million people have visited. Draw a valid conclusion from the given statements, if possible. If Ebony takes a vacation, then she will go to the Grand Canyon. If Ebony goes to the Grand Canyon, then she will hike to the Colorado River. So the conclusion here is if Ebony takes a vacation, then she will hike to the Colorado River. That is a valid conclusion. And that does this lesson. Take a look and try the mini assessment. And when we return to class, we'll work on that and the assignment. Thank you.